stood at the back of the auction hall and watched the crowd. Thousands of beings filled the massive chamber. Some were tall and thin with blue skin. Others were short and covered in thick fur. A few floated in special tanks filled with green liquid. The Grand Nexus auction house attracted every species in the galaxy, and today was the biggest sale of the year. Was human. He was 45 years old with gray hair at his temples and calm eyes that missed nothing. He had spent 20 years buying and selling rare items from across the stars. He had seen things that most people only dreamed about: ancient weapons, lost artwork, technology from dead civilizations. But he had never seen anything like what appeared on the stage today. Lot 7749, the auctioneer announced. Its voice echoed through the hall. A vessel of unknown origin, believed to be of human manufacture, age estimated at 3,000 years. The lights dimmed. A hologram appeared above the stage, showing a ship unlike any other. It was long and elegant, with curves that seemed to flow like water. The metal hull was dark gray with lines of gold running through it. Even as a hologram, it looked beautiful. Stopped breathing. He knew this ship. He had seen pictures of it when he was a child, sitting on his grandmother's knee. She had told him stories about the first humans to leave Earth, about brave colonists who built a ship with their own hands and flew into the unknown, about the wandering dawn. "That's impossible," whispered beside him. She was his partner and the best engineer he had ever known. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and her sharp eyes studied the hologram with disbelief. "The wandering dawn is a myth, a story for children." "My grandmother never lied to me," said quietly. The crowd began to murmur. Most species did not know or care about human legends, but could see other humans in the crowd. They were staring at the hologram with wide eyes. They recognized it too. "The bidding will begin at," the auctioneer started. "There will be no bidding." A new voice cut through the noise. It was cold and clear, like ice breaking. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. He was tall, taller than any human. His body was covered in hard plates that looked like armor made of bone. His eyes were large and completely black. He was one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They had been traveling between stars when humans still lived in caves. "I am the said. I speak for the Galactic Preservation Council. This vessel has been purchased by the Council. The sale is complete." The crowd exploded with angry voices. Beings shouted about fairness and rules. The auctioneer tried to restore order, but simply stood there, unmoved like a statue carved from stone. "Furthermore," continued, "the Council has determined that this vessel poses a threat to galactic stability. It will be destroyed within 48 hours." Silence fell over the hall. Felt something cold spread through his chest. Destroyed. They were going to destroy the wandering dawn. They were going to erase 3,000 years of human history. Grabbed his arm. "Don't." But he was already moving. He pushed through the crowd until he stood before. The look down at him with those empty black eyes. "Why?" asked. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "Why destroy it? It belongs to humanity. It's part of our history." "Your history is precisely the problem," said. "The technology contained within this vessel is dangerous. It must not fall into any species' hands, not even yours." "What technology? It's 3,000 years old. Our ships today are far more advanced." His mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. "Are they? You know so little about your own past, human. Perhaps that is for the best." Wanted to argue more, but security guards were already approaching. Pulled him back into the crowd before they could reach him. "We need to leave," she hissed. "Now." They made their way out of the auction hall and into the station's corridors. The Grand Nexus was a city in space, with markets and hotels and restaurants spread across dozens of levels. Thousands of beings walked past them, unaware of what had just happened. Led them to a quiet corner near a viewing window. Outside, stars stretched forever into the darkness. The auction was rigged, she said. Her fingers moved across a small tablet pulling up data. Look at this. The council filed their purchase claim 3 days ago, before the auction was even announced to the public. They never intended to let anyone else bid. Stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in a secure holding facility, sat the Wandering Dawn, the ship his grandmother had told him stories about, the ship that had carried the first humans beyond their own solar system. Why would they be afraid of a 3,000-year-old ship? He asked. I don't know, but I can find out. Eyes were bright with anger. She hated mysteries, and she hated being lied to even more. The council's database isn't as secure as they think. Turn to face her. If we do this, there's no going back. We'll be criminals. Everything we've built, everything we've worked for, it's over. I know. And you still want to do it. Met his gaze without flinching. My great-great-grandmother was born on Earth, before we had any contact with other species, before we knew there was anyone else out there. Those colonists who flew the Wandering Dawn, they were her heroes. They're the reason my family ever left Earth in the first place. She put her tablet away. I'm not going to let some insect in a fancy robe destroy that. Almost smiled. He had worked with for 10 years and she still surprised him. All right, he said, let's steal a mythical spaceship. They returned to their own vessel, a small trading ship called the Silver Crane. It wasn't pretty, but it was fast and reliable. Az began searching the council's database, made calls. He reached out to old contacts, old friends, old debts. He needed people he could trust, people who weren't afraid to break the law for the right reasons. 2 hours later, he had a list of 3 names. Was a pilot. She had flown military fighters before she got tired of following orders. Now she moved cargo that customs officers weren't supposed to find. She owed a favor from 5 years ago, and she always paid her debts. Park was young, barely 22, but he could break into any computer system in the galaxy. More importantly, he was obsessed with human history. When mentioned the Wandering Dawn, agreed before he even heard the plan. Was different. He was a species of tall reptilians with scales like emeralds. Most species avoided them because they looked frightening, but had a code of honor that was stronger than any law. He didn't care about human history. He cared about justice, and stealing from thieves was justice in his eyes. By the time the station's artificial sun dimmed to simulate night, the team was assembled in the Silver Crane's cargo hold. 48 hours, said. She projected a map of the council's holding facility onto the wall. That's how long we have before they destroy the Wandering Dawn. The ship is being held here, in a secure dock at the far end of the station. Security? Asked. She was leaning against the wall, her arms crossed, her expression bored, but her eyes were sharp. Heavy, energy shields, armed guards, sensor grids. Breaking in will be almost impossible. Almost grinned. His fingers were already dancing across his tablet. I like almost. Said nothing. He simply checked his weapons and waited. Looked at each of them in turn. They were criminals, outcasts, and dreamers. They had no business challenging the most powerful organization in the galaxy, but they were here anyway. Let's begin, he said. The council's holding facility was built into the outer shell of the Grand Nexus station. It hung over empty space like a metal fist, cold and unwelcoming. Guard ships circled it constantly, their weapons hot and ready. Watched it through the cockpit window of her shuttle. The small craft drifted among dozens of other vessels waiting for docking permission. She looked like just another pilot making a delivery. No one looked twice at her. I count 12 patrol ships, she said into her communicator. 2 heavy cruisers near the main entrance. They're not playing around. Expected's voice replied. Can you get closer? I can get close to anything, smiled and adjusted her course. Her shuttle slipped between 2 cargo freighters using their bulk as cover. I'm approaching the secondary dock now. 30 seconds to visual contact. On the Silver Crane, stood behind Park and watched the young man work. Fingers flew across multiple keyboards at once. Screens flickered around him, showing code and blueprints and security feeds. He was deep inside the Council's computer systems, moving through their data like a ghost. "I'm in their security network," said. His eyes never left the screens. "They have 17 different alarm systems, motion sensors, heat detectors, biometric scanners, and that's just the first layer." "Can you disable them?" asked. She was monitoring the facility's power systems from another station. "Not without triggering a backup. These systems are old, really old. I've never seen architecture like this before," frowned. "Wait, this is strange." "What?" "The holding facility's security. It wasn't built by the Council. The code signatures are different, ancient, like really ancient." He pulled up a comparison chart. "Look at this. The security protocols match files from the original gate builders, the species that created the faster-than-light gates we all use." Felt a chill run down his spine. The gate builders had been dead for 1,000,000 years. No one knew who they were or where they came from. Their technology was the foundation of galactic civilization, but no one truly understood it. "Why would gate builder technology be protecting the Wandering Dawn?" he asked. "I don't know, but it explains why the Council is scared," cracked his knuckles. "Okay, I can't disable the alarms completely, but I can create a window. 60 seconds of confusion in their systems. That's all I can give you." 60 seconds to get in, find the ship, and get out," shook her head. "That's not enough time." "It will have to be," turned to who was checking his weapons for the third time. "Are you ready?" The bared his teeth in what might have been a smile. "I am always ready." They took a maintenance shuttle to the facility. Had forged credentials that identified them as repair technicians responding to a power fluctuation. It was a thin cover, but it got them through the first checkpoint. The interior of the facility was cold and sterile. Metal walls stretched in every direction, lit by harsh white lights. Guards patrolled in pairs, their weapons visible, kept his head down and his hands steady as they walked through the corridors. "Security hub is ahead," whispered. She was watching a small device hidden in her palm. "If can hit them there, the disruption will spread through the whole system." "Are you ready?" "Ready, starting the disruption in 3, 2, 1. The lights flickered. Alarms began to wail, then stopped, then started again with a different tone. Guards looked around in confusion. Screens went dark, then flashed random colors. "Go," shouted. They ran, took the lead, his powerful legs carrying him faster than any human could move. He didn't bother to hide anymore. When guards appeared in their path, he knocked them aside with brutal efficiency. He didn't kill anyone, but they wouldn't be getting up soon. Guided them through the maze of corridors. Left, right, down a stairwell, through a door marked with warning symbols. The facility was huge, designed to hold hundreds of dangerous artifacts, but there was only one they cared about. The Wandering Dawn was waiting in the largest holding bay. Stopped when he saw it. The hologram at the auction had been beautiful, but it was nothing compared to the real thing. The ship was magnificent. Its hull seemed to absorb the harsh facility lights and turn them into something softer, warmer. The gold lines running through the metal pulsed gently, like veins carrying blood. "It's real," he breathed. "It's actually real." "We don't have time for this," said. She was already at the control panel, trying to unlock the docking clamps. 30 seconds left on the disruption. Nodded and ran up the boarding ramp. The interior of the ship was dark. His footsteps echoed through empty corridors. He expected dust and decay after 3,000 years, but the air was clean, fresh, like someone had been here recently. He reached the bridge. The pilot's chair sat before a wide viewport that showed the facility's walls. Screens surrounded it, all dark, but as stepped closer, they began to flicker to life. A voice filled the air. It was a woman's voice speaking words he almost understood. The language was old, so old that it took him a moment to recognize it. Ancient Korean, the tongue of his ancestors. "You have come at last," the voice said. "I have waited so long." "Who are you?" asked. "I am the memory of those who flew before. I am the keeper of truth. I am captain of the wandering dawn, and you must listen carefully, for there is little time." A hologram appeared before him. It showed a woman in her 30s with kind eyes and a determined jaw. She wore a uniform that looked handmade, practical but elegant. She looked at like she was seeing an old friend. "This ship must not be destroyed," said. "The Council fears what it contains. They fear the truth of what humanity once was, of what humanity could become again." "What truth? What are you talking about?" "The gates," said. "The network that connects the galaxy. The Council did not discover them. They were not given them by the ancient builders. They stole them. They hid them. And when humans began to build their own path to the stars, the Council became afraid." Alarms screamed through the facility. The 60 seconds were up. His voice came through his communicator. "We have to go now." But wasn't finished. "There is a place," she said quickly. "Coordinates hidden in this ship's navigation computer. It will show you everything. The truth about the gates. The truth about humanity. The truth about why they fear us so much." "I don't understand." "You will. You must. You are the first of our children to find us in 3,000 years. Do not let them silence us again." The hologram faded. The screens went dark, stood alone on the bridge, his heart pounding. Shouted again. He ran back to the boarding ramp. Guards were flooding into the holding bay, stood at the bottom of the ramp holding them back. His scales were scratched and one arm was bleeding, but he refused to move. "Get this ship flying," he roared. "I will hold them." Was already in the pilot's seat when reached the bridge. She didn't ask questions. She just started pressing buttons, trying to figure out controls that were 3,000 years old. "This technology doesn't make sense," she muttered. "It's too advanced. This isn't human engineering, not from 3,000 years ago. Just get us out of here." The engines hummed to life. It wasn't a roar or a whine like modern ships. It was almost a song, low and beautiful. The docking clamps released, and the wandering dawn began to rise. His voice crackled through the speakers. "Council ships are converging on your position. You need to jump now." "Jump where?" demanded. "I don't even know how to." The navigation computer activated on its own. Coordinates appeared on the screen, locked and ready. The destination was nowhere recognized, somewhere beyond the edge of known space. "That's where wanted us to go," he realized. "Who the hell is?" "I'll explain later. Jump." Grabbed the control and pushed it forward. Space twisted around them. Stars stretched into lines of light, and the wandering dawn vanished from the grand Nexus station, leaving chaos in its wake. In the holding bay, fought until there were too many guards to stop. They took him down with stun weapons, overwhelming him with numbers. He fell unconscious with a smile on his face. The ship had escaped. On the silver crane and watched helplessly as Council ships surrounded them. There was no way to run, no way to fight. "This is Council security," a cold voice announced. "Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. You are under arrest for theft of protected artifacts." Looked at, the young man was pale with fear, but he didn't look away. "Did they make it?" she asked. Checked his screens. The wandering dawn signal had disappeared completely, gone somewhere the Council couldn't follow. "Yeah," he said quietly, "they made it." Smiled and began powering down the engines. Then it was worth it. The Council had the silver crane. They had prisoners, but they didn't have the wandering dawn. They didn't have the truth. Not yet. The wandering dawn dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a place where no map said anything should exist. Stars surrounded them, strange and unfamiliar. A massive nebula filled half the viewport, purple and gold clouds swirling around each other like dancers. Sat frozen in the pilot's seat. Her hands were shaking. She had flown ships her entire adult life, but nothing had prepared her for what had just happened. The jump had lasted only seconds, but she felt like she had traveled through time itself. "Where are we?" she whispered. Stood beside her, staring at the nebula. "I don't know. Somewhere beyond the outer rim. Somewhere no one has been in thousands of years." The ship's screens flickered. The same hologram from before appeared on the bridge. I looked tired but relieved, like a mother whose children had finally come home. "You reached the coordinates," she said. "Good. I was afraid the council would stop you." "They almost did," said. Her voice was hard. "Our friends are probably in a prison cell right now, so you better start explaining. What is this place? What truth were you talking about?" Nodded slowly. "You deserve answers. All of humanity deserves answers. But first, let me tell you a story." The hologram changed. Instead of showing, it displayed images from long ago. Ships being built. Families saying goodbye. A blue-green world growing smaller in a viewport. 3,000 years ago, humanity took its first steps beyond Earth, narrated. We had no star maps. No help from other species. We didn't even know other species existed. We built the wandering dawn with our own hands, using technology we barely understood. And we flew into the darkness, hopping to find something better. The images shifted. The wandering dawn traveling through space. Strange new stars. Planets that no human had ever seen. We traveled for 50 years. We found worlds that could support life. We built colonies. We had children who had never seen Earth, who knew only the stars as their home. And then, at the edge of everything we knew, we found this. The image showed what lay beyond the nebula, gasped, leaned forward in her seat. It was a gate, but not like the gates that connected the modern galaxy. This one was enormous, larger than any structure had ever seen. It floated in space like a ring of pure darkness, its surface covered in patterns that hurt to look at. "The original gate," said. "The first one ever built. The source of the entire network that connects the galaxy." "That's impossible," said. "The gates were built by an ancient species. They died 1,000,000 years ago. Everyone knows that." "Everyone knows what the council wants them to know." His voice was bitter. "The council's ancestors didn't find the gates. They found this place just like we did. They learned how to activate the network, and then they locked it down. They made sure no other species could ever use it freely." Thought about what it said at the auction, about technology that could destabilize galactic power. They control who can travel where, he realized. They control trade, communication, everything. Exactly. For millions of years, the Council has held power by controlling the gates. They decide which species can expand and which must stay small. They decide who succeeds and who fails. Hologram flickered with emotion. When they discovered humanity was building our own faster-than-light technology, they were terrified. A species that could travel without the gates, that could threaten everything they had built. "So they tried to stop you," said quietly. "They didn't just try, they succeeded." The images showed the wandering dawn being chased by ships that looked similar to modern council vessels. "They hunted us across the galaxy. They destroyed our colonies. They killed thousands of our people. The wandering dawn was the only ship that escaped." "Why didn't anyone know about this?" asked. "Why isn't this in our history?" "Because the council erased it. They made contact with Earth 2,000 years later, pretending to be friendly. They offered humanity a place in the galaxy, access to the gate network, technology, and trade. All they asked in return was that humanity forget its own past." Smiled sadly. "Your ancestors agreed. They thought they were gaining everything. They didn't realize they were giving up who they truly were." The bridge was silent, felt sick. Everything he had been taught about humanity's place in the galaxy was a lie. They weren't newcomers who had been lucky enough to be accepted by older, wiser species. They were pioneers who had been beaten down and forced to forget. "Why are you telling us this now?" asked. "What do you want us to do?" "The same thing I've wanted for 3,000 years. Wake the gates," gestured at the massive structure floating beyond the nebula. "This is the master control. If you activate it, every dormant gate in the galaxy will come online. The Council's monopoly will end. Every species will be able to travel freely, trade freely, communicate freely." "That would change everything," said. "Yes, it would." Meanwhile, on the Grand Nexus station, sat in a cold metal chair. Her hands were bound behind her back. Her body ached from the rough treatment she had received from the guards, but her spirit was unbroken. High Arbiter stood before her. He was old, even for an. His bone-like plates had yellowed with age, and his black eyes seemed tired, but there was still power in his voice. The human called said, "Where has he taken the ship?" "No idea," said cheerfully. "We weren't exactly sharing our calendars." "You lie," leaned closer. His breath smelled like old paper. The wandering dawn jumped to coordinates that do not exist on any modern map. Someone gave those coordinates. Someone told him where to go. Maybe the ship told him. Ever think of that? Was quiet for a long moment. Then he straightened up and began to pace slowly around the room. "Do you know why the Council has existed for so long?" he asked. "Why we have maintained peace across thousands of species for millions of years? Because you have the biggest guns. Because we understand what happens when power is distributed carelessly." Stopped packing and faced her. "Humanity has been part of the galactic community for 2,000 years. In that time, you have expanded faster than any species in history. You adapt. You innovate. You refuse to accept limits that other species consider natural." "Sounds like a compliment." "It is an observation." His voice hardened. "Humanity is dangerous because you grow too fast. You reach for things before you understand them. The technology on that ship could give you capabilities that took other species millions of years to develop. You are not ready for that power." Laughed. It was a harsh sound in the quiet room. "That's what this is about. You're afraid of what we might become." She shook her head. "You're not worried about stability or peace. You're worried that if humans get access to the same things you have, we'll do more with them. We'll build better. We'll go further. And your precious council will become irrelevant." His expression didn't change, but his hands tightened slightly. "Perhaps," he admitted. "But even if that is true, it does not change the danger. The gate network was locked down for a reason. The species that built it nearly destroyed themselves with it. We cannot allow that to happen again." "Then maybe you should have tried cooperation instead of control." Leaned forward as far as her restraints would allow. "You know what humans do when you try to hold us down. We push back. We find another way. And we don't stop until we succeed." "I know," said quietly. "That is what frightens me most." He turned and walked to the door. Before leaving, he gave one last order to the guards. "Send the full fleet to the coordinates in the ship's last transmission. Find the wandering dawn, destroy it if necessary." He paused. "And prepare this prisoner for extended questioning. She knows more than she is saying." The door closed behind him. Sat alone in the cold room, her heart pounding but her resolve unchanged. Somewhere out there, and were carrying the hope of humanity. The Council would come for them with everything they had, but believed something that never could. She believed that sometimes the impossible was exactly what humans did best. The Council fleet jumped into the nebula 3 days after the wandering dawn arrived. 12 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel, their weapons hot and their shields raised. At their center was High Arbiter's flagship, the Eternal Law, a vessel large enough to carry a small city. On the bridge of the wandering dawn, watched them approach. Her face was pale, but her hands were steady on the controls. "They found us faster than I expected," she said. Nodded grimly. "Disruption must have left traces they could follow. It doesn't matter now. We need to move forward." Behind them, his hologram flickered with urgency. The gate is ready, but activation requires more than just pressing a button. The original builders designed it to test those who would use it. Someone must interface directly with the system. Interface how? Asked. The pilot's chair contains neural connectors. They will link your mind with the gate's control systems. You will experience the memories of those who built it, their hopes and fears. If you can prove your intentions are true, the gate will activate. Move toward the chair, then I'll do it. Wait. His voice was heavy with concern. The process is dangerous. The builders wanted to ensure that only those willing to sacrifice everything for connection would have this power. The interface was not designed to be survived. Grab's arm. No, absolutely not. We'll find another way. There is no other way, not in time. Gently removed her hand. The Council fleet will be here in less than an hour. If they destroy this ship and the gate, everything ends, all of it. The truth about our history, the chance for humanity to be free, it all disappears. Then let me do it. I'm the pilot. This is my ship now. Smiled sadly. You're the only one who can fly us out of here if this works, and someone needs to tell our story. You're better with words than I am. Before could argue further, the communication system crackled to life. A familiar voice filled the bridge. Wandering Dawn, this is Ambassador No of the Human Coalition. Please respond. Exchanged a surprised look with. Ambassador was humanity's highest-ranking diplomat in the galaxy. What was he doing here? This is, Ambassador, how did you find us? Your friend Park managed to send a message before the Council arrested him. He included coordinates and everything you had discovered about the Gate network. His voice was tight with emotion. I won't lie to you. The message caused chaos. Some human leaders wanted to ignore it to maintain our relationship with the Council, but others demanded answers. And you? I chose to come myself and see the truth. There was a pause. I brought ships, not many but some, colony worlds that refused to ignore their own history. Check the sensors. Sure enough, a small fleet of human vessels had arrived behind the Council warships. They were badly outnumbered, but they had come anyway. Ambassador, the Council will destroy you if you interfere, warned. Perhaps, but I spent my entire career trying to make humanity accepted by the galactic community. I smiled when they insulted us. I compromised when they demanded too much. I told myself it was necessary for peace. His voice hardened. I will not smile while they destroy the truth about who we are. The Council fleet began to spread out, forming a blockade around the gate. His voice echoed across all frequencies. Human vessels, you are interfering with official Council business. Stand down immediately or you will be considered hostile. We recognize no authority over our own history, replied calmly. If you want to destroy the Wandering Dawn, you will have to go through us. On the Eternal Law closed his eyes briefly. This was exactly what he had feared. Humans, once again, refusing to accept their place, pushing beyond limits that should never be challenged. So be it, he said quietly. All ships advance, destroy anyone who resists. The battle began. Human ships were smaller and less powerful than Council warships, but they were fast and their pilots were determined. They danced between the larger vessels, firing precisely and retreating before the enemy could respond. For every ship the Council destroyed, 3 more took its place. But it wasn't enough. Slowly, inevitably, the Council fleet pushed forward. On the Wandering Dawn, watched the battle unfold. He saw human ships burning in the darkness of space. He saw people dying to buy him time. It's now or never, he said. He sat in the pilot's chair. Metal arms extended from the sides, connecting to ports that had been hidden in the armrests. Thin needles emerged and touched his temples, his spine, his wrists. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. He cried out. But he couldn't hear her anymore. His mind was somewhere else. He stood in a place that existed outside of time. Around him were beings he couldn't quite see, forms made of light and shadow. They spoke in a language older than any species, but somehow he understood. "Why do you seek this power?" they asked. "Because my people have been lied to," said. "Because the truth was stolen from us. Because everyone deserves to know where they came from. Many have sought power with noble words, few have meant them." Memories flooded through him, not his own, but the memories of the beings who had built the gates. He saw their civilization at its height, spreading across the universe. He saw them create the gate network to connect all life. And he saw them fall, destroyed not by war but by isolation, by fear, by the belief that they alone should control what they had made. "We locked the network because we failed," the voices said. "We kept others apart because we could not trust them with connection. Was this wrong?" Thought about the council, about fear, about millions of years of control disguised as protection. "Connection is dangerous," he admitted. "But isolation is worse. We can't grow if we're kept apart. We can't learn from each other. We can't become better." He felt tears on his face, though his body was far away. Humanity isn't perfect. We make mistakes, but we also build, we also share, we also love. That has to count for something. The beings were silent for a long moment. "Your intentions are true, but truth alone is not enough. Are you willing to give everything for connection?" Thought about his grandmother telling him stories of the first ships, about all the humans who had lived and died never knowing their real history. "Yes," he said. Light exploded around him. In the physical world, the great gate began to glow. Energy rippled across its surface, spreading outward like waves in water. The patterns on its surface shifted and changed, coming alive for the first time in millions of years. Saw it happening and felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. "All ships destroy that gate, now." The Council fleet turned their weapons on the massive structure. Beams of energy struck its surface. Missiles exploded against it. But the gate was awakening now, and nothing could stop it. A pulse of light erupted from the gate's center. It spread outward faster than light itself, washing over the battle, over the nebula, over the stars beyond. Throughout the galaxy, dormant gates began to glow. Billions of beings looked up at the sky and saw points of light appearing where nothing had been before. The network was waking up. On the wandering Dawn collapsed in the pilot's chair. His body was still, his breathing shallow, but his heart was still beating. Rushed to his side. "Can you hear me?" His eyes opened slowly. They were different now, deeper somehow, like they had seen things no human was meant to see. "It worked," he whispered. "It actually worked." Outside, the Council fleet had stopped firing. Their weapons were useless now. The gate stood whole and active, its light spreading across the darkness of space. His voice came through the communication system, but the coldness was gone. He sounded old, tired, defeated. "What have you done?" Struggled to his feet, leaning on for support. He pressed the communication button with trembling fingers. "I gave everyone a choice," he said. "No more control, no more secrets. From now on, the galaxy belongs to everyone." Silence hung over the battlefield. Ships drifted, their crews uncertain what to do next. The old order had ended in a flash of light, and no one knew what would come next. But new, he could feel it, a gift from the ancient builders, connection spreading across the stars, species that had never spoken to each other, suddenly able to meet. Worlds that had been isolated for centuries, finally joined to the rest of the galaxy. It would be chaotic, it would be messy. Some would use this new freedom badly, but it would also be beautiful, because for the first time in millions of years, everyone would have the same chance. And humanity would be there to help them take it. 6 months had passed since the gates awakened. The galaxy was a different place now. Trade routes that had taken years to travel could now be crossed in days. Species that had been isolated on the edges of known space were suddenly neighbors with civilizations at the center. The old power structures crumbled as the council's monopoly disappeared like morning fog under a rising sun. Some called it chaos, others called it freedom, simply called it change. He stood on the observation deck of the new assembly station, watching ships come and go through the nearest gate. There were vessels from dozens of species, some familiar and some completely strange. They moved in patterns that would have been impossible before, flowing freely between stars that had once been separated by politics and lies. "You look tired," said, walking up beside him. "I am tired," smiled slightly, "but it's a good kind of tired." She handed him a cup of tea, Earth style, the way his grandmother used to make it. He took it gratefully and breathed in the familiar scent. "The assembly session starts in an hour," she said. "Ambassador says the delegation wants to speak with you before it begins." Who else? Chuckled. After his release from council custody, had returned to his as a hero. He had told his people about the humans who had risked everything for truth. They had been controlled by the council for centuries, forced to stay in their own small corner of space. Now they were one of humanity's strongest allies. "I'll meet with him, but first there's somewhere else I need to go." The Wandering Dawn floated in a special dock near the assembly station. It was no longer a functional ship. The strain of awakening the gate network had damaged its systems beyond repair. But it had been preserved as a monument, a reminder of what humanity had lost and what they had reclaimed. Walked through the corridors alone. The lights were dimmer now, the engines silent, but the ship still felt alive somehow, like a grandmother resting after a long journey. He reached the bridge and sat in the pilot's chair. The neural connectors were gone, removed after the activation. But when he closed his eyes, he could still feel the echoes of that moment. The voices of the ancient builders, the weight of their hope. "You did well." He opened his eyes. Iam's hologram stood before him, fainter than before but still recognizable. "I thought you were gone," he said softly. "Almost. There's only enough power left for a few more appearances. I wanted to say goodbye." She smiled, the same kind smile from the recordings. 3,000 years I waited, 3,000 years hoping someone would come, and now my purpose is complete." "What will happen to you?" "I'll fade away, return to whatever comes after existence." Didn't seem afraid. "But before I go, I wanted you to know something. The first colonists, the ones who built this ship and flew into the unknown, they knew they might never succeed. They knew they might die in the darkness between stars, but they went anyway because they believed that humanity was worth fighting for." Felt tears forming in his eyes. "I wish I could have met them." "You carry them with you, every human does. That's what made you special, not power or technology, just the stubborn belief that tomorrow could be better than today." Form flickered. "Take care of my ship, and take care of our people." "I will." She faded away like starlight at dawn. The bridge fell silent and was alone. He sat there for a long time, remembering. Then he wiped his eyes, stood up, and walked out to meet the future. The new assembly chamber was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Some floated in anti-gravity fields. Others stood in environmental suits designed for their specific needs. A few were present only as holograms, their physical forms too strange or too fragile to travel. At the center of the chamber was a raised platform where speakers could address the entire gathering. Walked toward it, feeling thousands of eyes upon him. "Representatives of the galaxy," he began, his voice carrying through the translation systems that made communication possible. "6 months ago, we unlocked something that had been hidden for millions of years. The gate network is now open to all. No species controls the paths between stars. No one decides who can travel and who must stay behind." He paused, looking at the faces around him. There was suspicion in some, hope in others. "I know many of you are afraid. Change is always frightening. The old order was comfortable for those who benefited from it, and even those who suffered knew what to expect. But the old order was built on lies. It was built on control. It was built on the belief that some species are better than others and deserve to decide the fate of everyone else. His voice hardened slightly. Humanity was told we were newcomers, that we were lucky to be accepted into galactic civilization, that we should be grateful for the scraps thrown to us by older, wiser species. We were made to forget our own history. We were made to forget that we were pioneers once, explorers, builders, people who looked at the stars and saw not barriers but opportunities. He took a breath. I'm not here to tell you that humanity should rule the galaxy. I'm not here to say we're better than anyone else. I'm here to say that we're all the same. Every species has dreams. Every species has potential. And every species deserves the chance to reach for the stars on their own terms. Ambassador stood among the human delegation, watching with pride. Beside him, a young named listened intently. She had been student once, but she had chosen to stand against the council when she saw the truth. Now she was one of the voices calling for a new way. The council failed because they tried to control something that was meant to be shared, continued. Connection is not a weapon, it's a gift, and gifts are meant to be given freely, not hoarded by those who fear what others might do with them. He looked toward the section where the remaining council representatives sat. Was not among them. He had retreated to his and refused to participate in the new order. But others had stayed, curious or desperate or simply accepting that the universe had changed. To those who served the old council, I say this: you are not our enemies. You did what you believed was right. But the time for that kind of thinking is over. Join us in building something new, something better, something that belongs to everyone. Step back from the platform. The chamber was quiet for a moment. Then applause began, scattered at first but growing. Not universal, not overwhelming, but real, honest. The beginning of something that might someday become unity. After the session, found his crew waiting for him in a quiet corridor. Was there, of course, leaning against the wall with her arms crossed and a small smile on her face. Stood beside her, finally free from council custody and more determined than ever. Park was typing something on a tablet, probably hacking into a system that deserved to be hacked, and towered over all of them, his scales gleaming in the station lights. Nice speech, said, very inspiring. You think so? No, I was being sarcastic. It was too long and you repeated yourself twice. She grinned. But the crowd seemed to like it, so what do I know? Looked up from his tablet. The message is spreading. Recordings of the speech are being shared across every network in the galaxy. Even species that don't trust humans yet are watching. Good, said, let them watch. Let them decide for themselves. Placed a heavy hand on shoulder. In my culture, we have a saying. A warrior is measured not by battles won, but by enemies turned to friends. You have turned many enemies today. Not enough, not yet. Looked at his crew, the people who had risked everything beside him, but were just getting started. They walked together toward the docking bay where a new ship waited. Not the Wandering Dawn, that vessel had earned its rest. This was a different ship, smaller and faster, built for exploration rather than war. They had named it the New Dawn. Settled into the pilot's seat while the others took their stations. Through the viewport, they could see the gate glowing softly, an invitation to anywhere in the galaxy. Where to? Asked. Thought about all the species out there who had never been given a chance, all the worlds that had been forgotten, all the stories that had never been told. Everywhere, he said, we've got a lot of catching up to do. The New Dawn lifted off and flew toward the light. Behind them, the galaxy watched and wondered what would come next. But already knew. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together, and they would face it on their own terms. That was what his grandmother's stories had always been about. Not the ships or the technology or the grand adventures. Just ordinary people looking up at the stars and refusing to believe that anything was impossible. The Wandering Dawn's journey was over, but humanity's journey was just beginning. And this time, no one would make them forget.